Welcome back to Ignorance is Infinite or Observational Ignorance, where father and daughter talk about generational topics pertaining to the accumulation of wealth.
And today we're going to talk about the first steps of building that wealth. And we consider that buying a house. That's kind of the foundational steps in our
Nice.
life.
Nice. This segment is brought to you by Secrets Between Friends, the destination for vintage clothing. Buy it again for the first time. Go to secretsbetweenfriends.com and buy those selections. And so finances and buying a house. Again, the foundation. You need to own property or own something. And people are always asking us, show me the money. A little Jerry Maguire bit. And how do you get to that point? Well, I'm curious. You're 23 years old and you already have a house. How did you get to that point?
It's funny, me and Christian were talking about this the other day, that when we closed on the house, I was 23, I was 23 and he was 22. And we were Googling, like, what's the average of people who own houses at our age? And there was not even like a statistic. I think the lowest we could find was the amount of people under 35. Like, people don't even think that we're even trying to buy a house, so they don't even come up with the statistics.
Wow, but, that's interesting.
For me, I remember telling you before that it wasn't a matter of if I could buy a house, it was when I was going to buy my house.
So why did you feel that way?
I grew up in a house. And I think that's the first step of even thinking that that's possible for you, is representation. Like you were saying, the only thing that inspired you to buy your house was going to your uncle's house and seeing, okay, this is actually possible for me.
Right, definitely. I grew up in an apartment. Lost my father when he was young, and we lived in a neighborhood where, we were struggling to make ends meet. My mother ended up having 4 boys, doing it on her own. So my uncles used to help out, and one uncle lived out in Long Island. He used to take us to his house, a few summers, once or twice, maybe during the summer, and seeing that and having a cousin bake us cookies, and it was like, wow, okay, this is possible. So, yeah, that planted the seed in my mind, and I always pay respect to that.
So I attributed to you and Mom, because I put the idea in CJ's head. I was like, we can do this, dude. We can get it done. And then obviously you need money.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not sure if you do too, but Mom always thinks that we got our down payment for the house from the wedding, which we should have. We took in a nice chunk, but we didn't know what the heck we were doing with money. So okay. that left as fast as it came.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't even know where it went. We were both looking at the savings like, here. But we had to go through that process of figuring out, okay, even if you're able to save up that amount of money, you have to know how to handle it or it's just going to disappear.
Right. So you have to put something in place. I know from our time, and again, we tell that story where we were living in an apartment. We just got married. You were born. You wasn't even a year old yet. And one day we woke up, and on the crib, it was like a little mouse turd on the banister. And it's like literally a mouse must have been running around and stopped and balanced, took a dump. And we're like, oh, no. We out. We got to figure this out. And since we were married, we were young, and we thought that's something we wanted to do, home ownership, we started to accelerate it. Now, we both had full-time jobs. Well, there wasn't a lot of money in the bank yet. So we started, budgeting differently. And back in those days, one of the things that you used to do when you wanted to get to the next place was, well, I'm leaving here, so I'm going to stop paying rent. And you accumulate a little bit faster. So we had to get to about $25K for that down payment. I don't know what number you had to hit.
That's high. I had to get the loan, before anybody would even talk to us about getting pre-approval for a mortgage, we had to have 13.
Okay.
That was their number. They were like, okay, we want you to save about 13. But by closing, I think we spent maybe 18 total. We had to come up with like an extra $5K on the fly within like 4 months.
And what was your method to get to that 13 again, since the wedding money was gone?
I think once we knew that, okay, we're in a 1 bedroom apartment,
Mm-hmm.
else is coming, then it kind of lights a fire under you of, okay, now this is serious. I really need to figure out what the heck I'm doing with my money. And we need to be financially literate. Because they could teach me things in school and you could shout to the day you die that I need to have cash in my wallet, but it goes through one ear and out the other. So I don't know. It just kind of whips you into shape knowing that it's not a thing of, oh yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it. It's
Right.
more of the pressure. I work better.
And previously, we had a conversation where you spoke about school and the type of school you went to, Catholic school, Catholic high school, one of the better ones. They taught you some things in school that I don't think they teach in public schools at that stage. What were some of the things they taught you about finance?
Credit. You had to have good credit, which was a huge thing when we got our pre-approval. Was me and Christian, we had like crispy, clean, sparkling credit.
Okay.
I got my first credit card when I was like a sophomore in college. That Discover student card, and I didn't fall into any of the traps. And
Such as?
Well, it's almost like, ooh, I have free money. This card can get me anything I want, but no, they're gonna come looking for you. So I always made sure that I never passed like 100. Back then I was just working at the bookstore, so I had to make sure that I could pay it off at the end of the month. So both of our credit scores were, I think, like 760, 750. So
That's nice for such a young age to build up that score.
They taught me in school, though. I remember my teacher was always so proud that he had a perfect credit score. What is that, like 850, 8? He was just like, this is
850.
People will give me anything with it.
It is amazing what credit scores do. I remember when we went to go get a line of credit, 25 to fix up the house, equity loan. Mm-hmm. And we went into the bank and, I'm there with your mother. They go to look up our score and she's like, yeah, it's probably going to take a few days. She went, put stuff in the computer, walked away, came back and said, you're good to go. Gave us a checkbook and everything for $25 because my credit was, at that point, was so good. And I even watched this commercial lately. The guy's looking at a car and his credit score is at like 550. He has this beat up old car. And it's like, through technology, they show him move his hand and his credit score goes to 650. And all of a sudden, it's a nicer car. Then it goes to 700. It's this great car. Then it goes to 800 and he's driving like a Lamborghini. And it's like, get your credit score at, credit, whatever, Karma or whatever, one of those websites. So credit score is huge.
It's huge. Which it's kind of almost a trap. Because you have to spend money. You have to spend money to get the credit score.
It becomes a question of doing it smartly. I mean, but it sounds like even at an early age, you were very disciplined.
Yes, with the credit card, I wasn't playing no games. Well, that was because Mom would always say that she had like this credit card issue when you guys first got married. That she Victoria's Secret, and then it was like she blinked and her Victoria's Secret card was maxed out. She was like, never again. I'm not touching that ever again.
Yeah, those places with the high credit rate, interest rates.
I know.
Tell you, just put minimum payments. No, so it is a good thing. That's one of the things I'll talk about later about paying off your credit card every month. Why pay that interest and whatnot. So you got your down payment, you spent your $18K, and you got your house, and they gave you the keys. And what are some of the things you learned after you moved in that you didn't expect?
I don't know. I feel like when I would talk to Mom about wanting to buy a house, she would always say it's cheaper than renting. Which, no. It's not necessarily cheaper than renting, but you definitely, again, you have almost wealth being built up as opposed to just throwing your money away.
Right, it's smartest. I mean, you got to pay for shelter somewhere, some way, somehow. And not everybody's as fortunate to get a house on whatever level. So that is key. And, nowadays people talk about, buying and co-ops and all that stuff and like buying an apartment in a building. I think with home ownership, you get the land too. And I think that's important. depending on how much land you can get, the things that you can do, barbecuing, running around, building your fence, and protecting your family. So there's a lot of, definitely a lot of pluses. And, it's one of the 9 points that I kind of have of what I do on a regular basis. The goal of home ownership, right? At the right price, it is better than renting, because you're giving that to a landlord when you're renting and they're paying their mortgage. So having a house, especially yours, having extra rooms, at some point you can even consider local colleges and renting out a room. You have so many options down the line. The other things that it appreciates in value. It's one of the few things that you buy. You buy a car, drive it off the lot, they say it already loses 2,000, 3,000. But you buy a house, don't you take care of it, it's going to accumulate and appreciate in value. Now, there was an exception during like 2007 when they were doing these things in the financial markets where they were packaging poor mortgages, and it inflated the cost of houses. Like you said, you had to move all the way up to where you moved up to, because kind of locally, closer to the city, closer to the Bronx, the prices of houses were kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, it appreciates in value. You get a tax bill and it has an assessment, and it tells you every year, hey, your house went up a little bit. That's the bare minimum, and it's usually higher than what you paid. But if you were to list it or look at one of those websites where they list houses in your area, you'd be surprised that the value goes up a lot quicker. And the third thing is when you pay it off, you don't have debt and you own it. Now, you still have to pay taxes and maintenance, but that'll still probably be less than the rent. And you look at rents the way they go up. It is definitely a good deal as long as you're in it for the long haul.
Well, that makes me think of, because we had tried to get our pre-approval from 2 different banks. Or maybe we went through 3 banks before someone was like, okay, can't tell you.
Right.
But I remember we went to one bank and the mortgage officer asked us, what are your assets? Like, what assets do you have? And I was like, what is he talking about? We got money in the bank, our car. Is that an asset? And he was like, no, that's not an asset.
So what did he mean?
Like things, like if you had a house, like things that
you're going to buy a house.
But it was like he didn't recognize even like those things as real wealth. Like it wasn't like, what have you actually obtained that has significant value,
right,
that you have in the background? So then I was like, okay, I know that right after we bought the house, there was a house that went for sale on the next street over. Mm-hmm. For $100,000 more, like maybe a month after we moved in, and we were like, look, we spend this amount of money, and then it goes up, and you can get way more money.
And you always want to keep that in mind. At some point, you may start looking and find something that's local, that's closer, or whatever, that seems like a good bargain. And you'd be like, all right, well, what if we sold our house? What is it worth? Just to find out. Mm-hmm. That's not the goal right now. Right now is to build that home and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it allows you to start doing. But you had spoke about like oil payments. How those costs that they catch you because you moved in at the end of summer, so you weren't ready for whatever the winter bills are going to be like.
But the previous owner left us with a full tank of oil, which we ran through. It was Tahiti up in here.
What's it like now? Some balance.
Man. Yeah. But yeah, those are just unexpected costs that you run into that I could see it would dissuade somebody from wanting to buy a house. Mm-hmm. But in the long run, it's just no comparison to renting.
Right, and the key is you usually don't do it alone. You need that partner that's also working full time to contribute. It's at least to get you off the ground and have those assets, and then you figure things out. So I grew up with a lot of people that always aspired, but never saw it through. So I felt fortunate that I was able to do so, and I'm so glad that it inspired you so quickly. But some other things that you have to do when you are building up your wealth and your money. I read a Time magazine article. I don't know how long ago it was. I think it was before the housing bubble. So I used to read lots of magazines and rip out the articles. But it talked about, excuse me, the target salary for a person to be happy. What do you think it is? What number do you think it is?
I don't know. I know the average is 50, right?
The average is what?
50,000.
That people make?
Yeah.
In New York?
I think that's the average for.
Well, now with minimum wage being where it's at, it's almost easy to hit 50 because I think minimum wage when you add it up is like 32,000.
Why? What is it? What's your stat?
So back then, it was at least 15 years ago. It was 75K. They were like, you make 75K and you're happy.
Money doesn't buy happiness.
Money isn't what?
Money doesn't buy happiness. More money, more problems.
Right, but you want to get to a point where you stop worrying about the things that you have to pay, right? The things that rent, lights, utilities, food. And once you have that set, you look at your discretionary income. What can you do with that? Are you investing this, that, and the other? So, I mean, that's the number. So as you get above 75, you hit 80, 90, you have to resist living beyond your means. And that discipline that you spoke about earlier is going to help you where you already got good practices. So you're not going to start blowing up the credit card now. You know, you might have urges, but you're not going to do that because what's the worst thing? The interest. Why are you paying even more for something that if you save up for it, you can have it? You want to avoid non-appreciating debt, school loans, credit card loans. Again, that is another challenge that, you know, is kind of hidden. They've taken things like medical education and housing and made it almost push the goalposts and made it so expensive to have that you start taking out these loans because they're such necessities. But then you find out that you're just in the wheel spinning, just paying the minimums, and those debts prevent you from doing other things. So I grew up without.
I got the pre-approval so easily too, was that I didn't have student loans. They were in shock.
That's key. So if that's something that we want to communicate to people and let them know as they're going after their education to build up how they want to be in life, that they want to be careful taking out so many loans because it's going to hinder you on the back end. You know, getting out of debt gives you that sense of accomplishment. Investing in your company's 401k. And it's funny because I've been in several jobs where I've been there 10, 15, and it always takes me a while before I start investing in the 401k. Like, you know, maybe at the time the cash flow wasn't there. But if your company's matching it 2%, 4%, whatever, at least invest the amount of the match because the match is free money. There are 401ks from previous jobs that I've never put back any other money in it. And when I watch it, it shows me my contribution, the company's contribution, and what it's grown to. And again, right now, everything is so rosy. But it's amazing that the money that's in there is twice or three times what I put in. And then the money they put in for whatever 5, 6, 7 years, just free money they gave me. That's been investing and accumulating and what have you. So I don't know, do you partake in your 401k?
I do. I think I put in 3%.
Do they match?
Yeah, they match.
To what point?
I don't know.
Find that out.
About 3% rent.
Because then you want to start getting yourself to that point where if you can go to where they match, if they match up to 10%, you want to get as close to that number because they're giving you money. And after 5 years with a company, then you're vested, meaning that you, like early on, you're there the first year, you can have 50% of the money they gave you. But after you're fully vested, 3 years, 5 years, all the money they contributed becomes yours. But if you were to leave early and you're not fully vested, they take back some of the money they matched. So, but it's important to do the 401k. That's just money that just starts to accumulate elsewhere. Really think about kids, how many kids you want. You start to see the expense. You want them to lead a certain path. So you're already thinking, all right, they need to do this, they need to do that. When you buy your house, the area that you buy it in, you hope that the taxes, that the schools are good. But you don't have to go out and spend additional money.
When we were looking for our house, there were, I think, 2 houses that, like, cosmetically, they look nicer, they were more updated, but one was in a really bad school district. I think the other one, school district, was okay. But this school district that we're in right now is like an A+. So the taxes are like...
Right, so you want to say that you're going to send Vera to that school and hope that she gets the type of education. And you'll be able to tell the book she gets, the type of things she talks about, that you hopefully don't have to send it to a different school that you have to pay for. And that's already being paid for with your taxes. So that'd be great.
Concern for you guys when you bought the house, or did you know you were going to send me to private school?
Well, Ariel was already in the one that was near his grandmother's house. So we kind of knew that was happening. And then he went to the one close to this house. So the school you went to right across the street is a public school. Mm-hmm. And it was like, night and day. So Ariel was already going there. So we were already factoring in that. Now, originally, when I had married your mother, she was working for a college. So somebody who works full-time at a college, in a good college, go to school for free. So that was played into it too. So maybe if we were paying for the Catholic school to get you to that point, then you go to free, go to school, college tuition free. Tuition remission is what it's called. So that was important. You don't have that for Vera's college, so it's almost like you want to keep pushing and make sure that she's top notch in her education, as well as if she has any athletic gifts, that you're having her partake in different things, whether it's basketball, soccer, softball, just to see what she's good at, music, and maybe there's something that she's gonna excel that transfers over. Like the genes don't necessarily that transfer over don't have to be that she plays basketball because she's big and skillful. Those skills can transfer over to music. The next thing you know, she's on the piano, and you're like, "How did we get a piano?" And you go to one of those sites that you and your mother go to, and get a $10,000 piano for $300.
Stranger.
Right, and you have to think like that on those type of levels.
How did you learn to be smart with your money? Were you always like that?
Pretty much, because I grew up not having it. So once I started getting a regular paycheck and learning how to pay, like my mother charged me rent, so she taught me how to pay a bill. Then I'd have a credit card and I'd buy something, and if you didn't pay it off, you see the next month, oh, they just charged me $10, $20, $30 of interest. I could have bought 3 things with that. Oh, no. I'm paying stuff off. Early on, I learned that. And I just started doing that. One of the other things I started to notice, I used to get paid biweekly. So there's a difference between getting paid biweekly and getting paid twice a month. So you could make $50,000 and it'll add up to $50,000 at the end of the year, whether you're biweekly or twice a month. But if you're used to your bills, there's 2 months a year that you get 3 paychecks. So for the other 10 months, you've gotten used to those 2 paychecks. So those 2 extra months where it's 3 paychecks, that feels like free money. It's the same money, but since you're used to something, it's extra. You see it in the bank account, and you can say, all right, I want to save half of that, and I'll invest the rest. I'll go on a trip. I'll buy me something. But being mental like that, I've been like that for a long time.
You never fell into the pitfalls.
No, I don't hate paying Con Edison. I don't love it, but I know, let me keep it manageable. I know I got to pay these things. All right, now what do I have left? And that's how I thought about things. Even after you buy the house, you move from paying rent to paying a mortgage. What is the extra? And I've been smart like that with money for a long time.
Why do you think land and home ownership is so important to building your wealth?
Well, like I said a little bit earlier too, is that it appreciates in value. Again, you're paying yourself practically.
Up higher. People could say that their bank account is higher renting. So
yeah, but those are ebbs and flows. It depends on if they're living paycheck by paycheck. Right, you paid off the down payment, your bank account went down. You got all the money from the wedding, your bank account went down. What happened? You put it back up. Why did you have that ability to put it back up? Because you're not living paycheck to paycheck. So your paycheck comes in and everything goes to bills? No. You have money to do other things. So now you start to think, all right, how can I get better at that? Without, lessening the experience that you have as you're going through life. It's just so different.
I think of it as I want something to give to Vera. Like when I die, so morbid. When I die, she'll get the house. She'll have to clean everything out and sell my old couch.
It may not even work out that way. But I looked at it as, I had this house. At some point, you're going to do 5 times better than me. That's your first house. That won't be your last house. I guarantee it. You're going to go the path more like Cousin Eileen. I don't know if we ever took you to their first house. They had a house, and on the outside, it was painted in like royal blue, like the whole house, the window sills and everything. It's kind of weird, but they had a house. And then you've been to their houses out in Jersey now, where they live on this property in these big, it's like a mansion almost, as they built up their careers. And their kids went to good schools and they're on that same path. So I think you're just in your first house. Me, it's kind of like still holding on to that. All right, this is that, and I didn't build off of it. I didn't flip it. You know, even during 2007 when the prices were skyrocketing, the thing that held me back was if I sell this house, if I want another house, now I got to overpay for the next house. No, I know people who overspend on houses, and then once the bubble burst, the value of their house went down, and they were stuck still paying those high mortgages and barely getting by. So you got to be smart about it and keep aware of what's going on with the market and where there's an opportunity. I think you'll jump on it faster than I ever did.
Well, I feel like my tunnel vision is more towards generationally.
Okay.
Like you always talked about building up higher than your predecessor. Like get something faster or do something a little bit bigger. But when you talk about like these people in the news that are saying Trump I got a small loan of $1 million. Or like your predecessors, if they built up, substantial wealth, like real things that they could then pass down to their kids, then their kids are gonna make it bigger, their kids are gonna make it bigger. And then they'll start giving their kids small loans of $1 million.
Here's the other thing, right? Because I'm not surrounded by a lot of people like that. So even the group that I hang with, I don't see much of that. Now, the company I work for now is a friend. I see where he went with it. And I know a couple of other friends now that have bought houses, but it's not a large group of it. So you either have to be around it to continue to grow it and to accelerate it. The good thing is also on your husband's side of the family, they got a business, they got houses in different places. So again, you keep seeing that and you keep saying you want to build up. Even on our side with your mother's side and your uncle. How many times has he flipped houses? So you keep seeing that, and if you ever wanted to go that route, you can have a conversation with him and be like, all right, yeah, you bought that house, you put in work into it. I don't see Christian as Bob the Builder like your uncle is. But at the same time, you would be looking for, all right, I have this house, how do I get to that next level of house and still not, put myself behind the 8 ball in terms of finances. He may be able to give you a different type of insight since he's moved around in so many houses. And that's how you share that wealth of knowledge.
That makes me think of, too, you saying now you want to start tapping into owning your own business. Because I equate that the same or more better than owning a house. If you have a business, like a steady income flow, then you could say, oh, I'm training my kids to be a part of my business, and they're training their kids, like your boss, you said. Once you get
right, and I see, it's funny because I see the challenges of the children. But what I'm first talking about is you go to a job right now and you work for a paycheck. Somebody writes your check. You trade off your abilities for money. And no matter how hard you work, they may give you a bonus, they may give you a good salary. But if they're giving everybody a good salary, that means they're making even more. So that ownership is important, that at some point you want to work for yourself, if you can. Now, I'm much more advanced in age to take those risks. There is a risk of owning your own business because it's every day. So you got to be into it. But you want to do it, and there's other avenues to do it. In this social media world that we live in and all this content, all these channels, there's other avenues that it doesn't have to be a traditional, you invest, overhead, a building, you manufacture, and then it goes away. So you can work for yourself and have 2 employees and live a good life.
Live a good life, yes, but not build wealth.
Well, it depends again what it is you're manufacturing and what people are paying you. It's about value.
Living comfortably your whole life is not the same thing as building wealth. In my eyes, they're different.
That's true, and then you can say you want to get to the point that you build wealth, and you're going to pass that on to Vera and whoever else, and you'll get to that point. But you got to first start somewhere and know that is there and it's legitimate and it's going to be there after you. And the article I sent you about a book that I read from Susie Orman about the ultimate retirement for 50 plus starts talking about the things you should be doing 50, 60, and what have you, investing, wills and trust. It just put me on to so many different things that I haven't moved on it yet, but I was highlighting pages, copying paste, and then putting certain notes. And I scanned that for myself, and then I shared that with you. So you have that. It's just another thing about, like, one of my points is reading. You got to read different types of books if you just want to educate yourself about money, like different people that have had success. One of the favorite books that I ever wrote was something called Die Broke. Die Broke. Yeah, it wasn't saying walk around and have no money in your pocket. It was saying you can't take it with you when you go to the grave. So build something up, and you have to make sure that you put things in place. Like a will is about your assets and trust, or about, revocable trust, or about things of how you want things carried out after you die. A will won't cover that. So when you look at that thing that I sent you, you'll start to understand that a little bit better in terms of if something was happening to you and your husband, who would take care of Vera? Now, your mother will be climbing out, beating people up. No, yeah, I'm doing it. But that could be challenged in the court unless it's specified. Mm-hmm. So things like that, having that knowledge, that awareness is key.
Well, that makes me think of Grandma Renee. Mm-hmm. Your mom, they don't. I remember when I was younger, she would always say that we were royalty in Barbados. And that we had land or stores in Barbados. And then you said that you had heirs property that you lost a hold of.
Right. I remember years ago they mentioned a cousin that, yeah, my mother used to say we had some property. And I asked my older brother about it. And like my mother wasn't interested in it. And watching that video that you had shown me about the heirs and how they lose it, and some guy goes into court and like takes it from them. Knowing now what I want to have property, oh yeah, I would have been super interested. I hear about that now. I'm flying down wherever they at. Oh, let me see. Yeah, I'm a voice. What do I own? Please let me know. And then, because you want to be in control, you want to be intentional about the things that you're doing. So, yeah, that would have been interesting.
So there's a problem. Okay, once you own something, you have to know how to protect it and hold on to it.
And that's where you get lawyers. And so that's why a lot of times, and you see people coming from Asian countries, like whether it's India or China, they always come here and want to become doctors first, because you see the medical profession is like booming, and you can make a lot of money being a doctor, especially if you perform surgery. And then lawyers, they make a lot of money, whether it's regular law, ambulance chases, or the people that work in these big corporations that have to help protect those things. There's a lot of value in that, and understanding how money works and how business works. Definitely.
I know before I've mentioned to you Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you looked into him. He's like
no,
like a debt guru. He's Are you writing him down?
Yep.
He's in the financial sphere, but he like teaches people how to be financially literate, because I think he's been broke at one point in his life, and even more than once, where you lose everything and you start from the bottom. He just teaches people. He's really against like credit cards and credit scores. He's like, you just need to start using cash. Like cash is king. But doctors.
Yeah, but those 3 banks you went to. Cash can just disappear.
Doctors and lawyers fresh out of school will call him and be like, Dave, I'm buried in debt. Like I have 200, 300, 400K in debt. And he's like, okay, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna get out of this? What job are you planning on getting? And they're like, I'm drowning in debt. I thought this job was gonna be my key, and it's giving me more problems.
Yeah, you just never know. It's amazing. And you just brought up a key point. So it's Dave Ramsey. I'm going to look him up and whatnot. You read a lot of different things. I told you before in another conversation that I steal. You take bits and pieces and you put it together. You put together your own version of how you want to go forward. Not everybody is 100% the gospel. So just because they did it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. That's what financial documents tell you all the time. Past results don't guarantee future results. They're protecting their neck. Oh, you said it's going to give 10%, 20%, 30%. That's what we experienced for many years, and now because the circumstances didn't happen, and we don't owe you anything because of that, that type of thing. But it kind of takes us to something I do want to ask you about. Did you watch any of the Meghan Markle Harry stuff?
Yes.
All right. So before we get that, this segment is sponsored by Ariel Rosato's vlog on YouTube, where you can find reviews on the high-end and luxury goods that you've always wondered about. Go to Ariel Rosato on YouTube. So after that interview on Oprah and watching that, which was you're watching things and different things came out. The whole thing about the color of the baby, who asked that question, and he left so that he could protect his baby because they weren't going to protect the baby. So he had to make money and whatnot. I was listening to Russell Brand. You ever heard of him? He has the long black hair, scrawny voice. He's a comedian, but he spoke so eloquently about the whole thing about royalty. Like, it's just this pomp and circumstance. The queen's sitting on whatever, $88 billion, some crazy number. But it's not something that really carries on. They're just preserving it, which is what's kind of weird. And that, his brother married somebody who was around money, old money, and it kind of fit into that narrative. And then Harry went and married somebody whose family was nowhere near, almost like the black sheep. And she turned out she was African American.
Well, Meghan is what, considered new money?
She's considered Hollywood actress money. It's not like she had a production company and she was making stuff. She just worked job to job. But her family, her father, her mother, didn't really bring what others were going to bring to the table in terms of you're marrying into this royal family. And I think that was, at least from my vantage point, something I found curious. What did you think about that whole situation? I can imagine somebody asking you about the color. Is Vera going to be light enough to be a royal?
Well, more so on the money side, the idea that Harry was saying, I didn't have any money. When we got here, we had nothing. I had to stay at, I think, Tyler Perry's estate in Canada.
Yeah, I heard that he provided the security for them. And I think he said he inherited money from his mother, something like $12 million. Now, again, against $88 billion in royalty, $12 million will go fast paying for security after you buy your house and whatever, right?
I suppose. But that makes me think of the other point of old money versus new money and the kind of cachet that comes with being someone in a legacy as opposed to someone who just popped up because they make money doing music or something. They're not.
That's true. People look down on them. People that inherited wealth, building it up, look at people, oh, you made that money that way. They look down their nose on them. It's kind of weird, but they can buy the same stuff. They just don't travel in the same circles.
Yeah.
You go to a black church and they all dressed up and decked out. That's black royalty without the money.
Well, it's interesting that once you get to that level of wealth, money isn't just money. Like then
what is it?
I don't know. It's like okay, you could Beyonce could walk in and also be sitting on a huge thing of cash, but she's not going to be looked at the same way.
And does that matter? Who are them to judge, right? Who are they to judge us?
The whole album about now how he's trying to build wealth for his family.
Who?
And Jay-Z. How he's trying to kind of enter that realm of old money where they think more about buying art and
yeah, and he's done a great job. And the other problem being like almost a trailblazer is that he's there alone and he'll be surrounded by mainly white people of means. They'll let him in and show him, because some of the paintings and things he's buying from these people, transferring his money to them. It's almost like he needed Kanye and Kim to stay together and have their pocket in Montana. Kim needed to go to Montana. They need to make that work. But to have other people, there are a lot of black people, even in corporate America, that could start building a community, and they should, where you start to say, yeah, we talk amongst ourselves. We're able to talk with the white and royalty or whatever it is and be around them, but we should be making sure we have a nice roster membership of our people. I think that would be great. And that's kind of what we're doing on a lower level, trying to stay with housing and buying and ownership. Right now, you live in a place where next door your neighbor's African American, but you don't have a community. You grew up in an area, we don't really have a community. How do we build that community and then take it up and be like, Beyonce, Jay-Z, we ready? Or Vera saying it, yo, Blue Ivy, what's up?
It's just, I think it's more about what you own. What do you own? Not even like, oh, you have this insert number here in your bank account, but do you have a real estate portfolio or a valuable collection? That's something that also has a lot of money in it.
That's why when y'all scoff at my mother's painting,
That was great.
I got art, man. I got art. Yo, this has been a very enlightening talk. There's definitely more that we can view on, and just you now talking about how do you build up a portfolio. I think that's something we can explore together from two levels, and it's like me getting there late and you getting there early. So this has been another episode of Ignorance is Infinite. We've been very observational. We're always learning. Thank you for joining us. Peace out. Thanks, Deuce. Love you.